What's up, guys? Murphy Firearms Training follow-up video to a range test. So I have got 4 factory ammos that I wanted to play with, that I wanted to try on the range, and we've got range videos of each of these. This is our follow-up to kind of give you the wrap-up of what happened, expansion, weight retention, all of that. So first video was Hornady Critical Duty. Okay, so let's go through these ammos. The Critical Duty, right here on the box, this is a 135 grain flex locks tip. It is advertised muzzle velocity of 10 feet per second. Okay, and that ammo looks like this. Okay, so there's our expanded hollow point. I'll let you take a nice close look at that. It is a long bullet, very long for caliber, did not expand a lot. We'll get into the expansion numbers. Okay, this is what an unexpanded one looks like. Nickel case, gorgeous ammo. My wife carried Hornady Critical Defense for years, and I'll get into the one disadvantage that I found with Critical Defense and Critical Duty. The second ammo was Hornady Critical Defense LITE. Very low recoil. This is a 100 grain FTX tip. It is an advertised muzzle velocity of 1125 feet per second. Very little recoil, very good pattern. This had probably the tightest pattern of all these, but it did shoot a little high. A 100 grain projectile is very light for caliber. That's really getting into 380 range. So here is the expanded projectile. We got that one pedal that, is kind of hanging on, but most of the pedals ripped off. Did expand quite nicely. A pretty large diameter there. And again, you'll notice it's a much shorter bullet, so a lot less mass. And there's the unexpanded. It does come in a brass case, not a nickel case. And it has the pink flex locks tip instead of the red. So marketed to women, I guess. The third ammo was the SIG Everyday Carry 365 V Crown. Okay, this is a 115 grain and jacketed hollow point. Advertised muzzle velocity is 1050 feet per second, and they actually give the energy relation there that's 282 foot-pounds. 282 foot-pounds. And the SIG V Crown was a weird expansion. It doesn't look like a normal hollow point. So here it is. You can see the rifling marks on the bullet, kind of a standard length bullet here. It had a really weird expansion. See these segments in the lead, and it's sort of kind of just squished back instead of peeling back. But it had good penetration, good expansion. The thing I enjoyed, and here is the loaded round. It's nickel case. Nice looking hollow point, nice round profile, feeds real well. The thing I really like about this ammo is it's 115 grain, which is your most standard practice ammo weight. And so if you buy 115 grain full metal jacket and you're hitting where you want to hit, the recoil and the point of impact on this ammo was identical to my standard 115 grain practice ammo that I use, which is usually blazer brass or something, a cheap full metal jacket. So this hit exactly where I aimed. It had a good group, and that kind of matters to me. Whereas these others are, odd weights. That this one hit a little high. This had a little bigger pattern than normal. Now, they were all acceptable, but this one definitely had a good pattern and hit where I aimed. This one had a great pattern, but it hit a hair high. So anyway, really cool ammo there. And then the last one, the one I was the most impressed with, is the Federal Punch. This is a 124 grain, so slightly heavier, 124 grain, jacketed hollow point, okay? Marketed here, you can see, for personal protection. That's what their little marker means. And Federal has this cute little table they put on all their ammo. So here goes. It has a velocity of 1150 feet per second and a muzzle energy of 364. Now I want you to compare that. This has a higher muzzle velocity than all of these other, with the exception of, actually higher even than the 100 grain. Okay, has the highest advertised muzzle velocity of this entire lot, but this is not plus P ammo. And it's a heavier bullet, so I'm not really sure how they did that. But There's our expanded hollow point. Really, you can tell this is a bonded round. It expanded, you know, just traditional mushroom shape. The petals all stayed on. Nice thick copper jacket. Didn't shed petals. Has a cool P on the back, so you know you shot Federal Punch. Okay, so it's, you know, a very, very typical expansion for a hollow point. And then here is the loaded round. Here's what the loaded rounds. Again, nickel case. If you look very carefully, you can see the segments on the hollow point that allow it to expand. Good looking hollow point, fed reliably, shot very well, good pattern to it. We also had a hand load that we tested, and I don't have the box for that, but here is the expanded. It was a Hornady Xtp. And there's the expanded bullet. This is more of a cup and core bullet. It's a very thin jacket with a soft lead core. Okay, so that's what that looks like expanded. And it expanded quite well. This is a 124 grain XTP, and this is just one loaded example. This is a hand load. This is once fired brass. This happens to be Federal, but I just mix my handgun brass when I reload. But that's what a reloaded cartridge looks like. So that was the last one we tested just because I had it handy. So let's go through the numbers. So we're going to start with, I'm going to pull all these others out of the way. We're going to start with Critical Duty. So we're going to start with Critical Duty. Okay, Critical Duty. Here goes. So here's our Critical Duty. What have we got? The first thing we've got is average velocity. The average velocity, 5 shots, came up to 1022. 1022. So the box says 1010. This came up to 1022 out of a 3.3 inch barrel. So out of a short barrel, this did meet the manufacturer's velocity. That velocity gave a muzzle energy of 313 foot-pounds, which I think is a very good self-defense value. I look for a round that's probably 190, 200 minimum, up to 500 or 600 maximum. Because when you get much above that, you really worry about over-penetration and muzzle flip. But, you know, you do you. That's just kind of my general rule. But I like to look at how something performs on the range. This penetrated 4 full water jugs and went into the 5th and dented the back. It penetrated very, very deeply. Now, the reason it penetrated very deeply is the expansion was 0.434 inches. Now, I did the math for you. That is 120% of the standard 9mm, okay? I typically look for a round. So my comparison round, here's my comparison round. This is a Spear Gold Dot. This is my carry ammo, Spear Gold Dot. Spear Gold Dot always has 100% weight retention and always opens up to 150, 155% of standard diameter. Okay, so if we take that, that's 150% expansion there. This is 120% expansion. So it doesn't expand very much. It's not quite like shooting Full Metal Jacket. If your goal is penetration with a 9mm, I would recommend this round. My thought on that is that I look for a balance of it needs to penetrate, but it also needs to expand, because that expansion is going to give you some hydraulic shock. It is also going to do more damage to soft tissue. It's going to do, it makes a bigger hole, y'all. And my thought process on that is if you make a bigger hole, you're going to do more damage. So this is not going to go into my carry rotation. This is not going to be something I would put into my gun, because I want more expansion than that. So that's kind of my take on that. But they did meet the ballistics that are on the box. If you are looking for more penetration, that might be a great option for you. It is a non-plus P offering, so you don't have to worry about your gun being rated for plus P. You know, it grouped well, it shot well, fed well. Next up is the Hornady Critical Defense. So we'll bring in our unfired and our fired bullet here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I didn't break my scale out for this, but this slug weighed 133 grains, so pretty much 100% weight retention. Okay? All right, so next up is the Hornady Critical Defense LITE. This is a 100 grain projectile. The average expansion was 0.58 inches. I measured at 3 different pedal locations. I got an average expansion of 0.58 inches. Okay, so that comes up to be 161% expansion. So this expanded well, and in the video there was this huge splashback. I mean, it really ripped open the first 2 jugs, but it only went through 2 jugs. It stopped in the second water jug. You know, so you're looking not a lot of penetration. But it did have a lower recoil. I mean, definitely less muzzle flip. It was very easy to shoot. It fed well. So if you, again, I think these 2 ammos are on the opposite end of the spectrum. The Critical Duty is very much about penetration. This one is very much about expansion. So if you really want a deeper penetrating round, go with the Critical Duty. If you really want lower recoil and something that expands, I mean, really expands, you know, especially like in a home defense situation where you're concerned with over penetration, this might be a good choice. Now, let me tell you my critical defense story. My wife carried critical defense in her handgun for years. And she stopped carrying it because she has a single stack 9mm. And one day on the range, every year we shoot our hollow points because they're in there. They get dirty. They get gritty. They're in the heat. They're in our cars. And we just don't trust the gunpowder not to break down. So every year we will shoot the hollow points that are loaded in our carry guns, and then we'll reload fresh hollow points that have been in the nice, comfortable air conditioning in the box that haven't deteriorated from heat. And anyway, in shooting her hollow points that were a year old, this little rubber tip caught on the front of her magazine. Okay, so it's feeding in the magazine. This little rubber tip actually caught, and the bullet cocked back end up, and the magazine was jammed up. We had to actually tap it on the table to get the rounds to pop loose and feed up. And so that day, she said, I don't want to carry that anymore. So, you know, do check those things with your carry ammo. That particular magazine, I guess, is just very tight tolerances. And she was not carrying the Critical Defense LITE, which is actually a slightly shorter round. She was carrying the standard Critical Defense, which I think is 115, 120 grain flex tip. But anyway, I digress. So she did have a problem with that, and she has switched to a different carry ammo since then. But this ammo did expand very well. The muzzle velocity that we got from this was 1118. They advertise 1125. So, you know, statistically, that is definitely within, you know, pretty much that is the advertised velocity. So kudos to you, Hornady. Both of these ammos really hit that advertised velocity. 95 grain was the retained weight, so 95% weight retention. Again, 161% expansion. Muzzle energy was 277. So the only knock I have on this one is I don't think it penetrated quite deep enough. Okay, and again, these are all my opinions. I'm providing this data. You make the choice. Okay, third up was the SIG V Crown, the 365 everyday carry. The SIG EDC, here it is, expanded. Let's go through this, the numbers here. The average expansion on this one, this is a harder lead. It's kind of like the Critical Duty. It didn't expand quite as much. So this one is 115 grains. It retained 115 grains, 100% weight retention. And it had an average velocity of 1118. Now, they advertise on the box 1050. So kudos to you, SIG. My chronograph gave me 1118 for a 5-shot average. So out of a short barrel, I am getting above what it says on the box. Kudos to you, SIG, because a lot of ammo manufacturers way overrate their ammo. They shoot it out of 6-inch barrels. You know, they're really trying to make it look good. So SIG put some realistic numbers on their box there. Again, going back to the numbers, 313 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, so definitely a good wallop out of these. Average expansion was 0.48, so 134%, so a little under my 150 mark, but better than the Critical Duty. This one also penetrated into the 5th water jug, so it penetrated very deep, but with a little more expansion than the Critical Duty. You know, a good splashback. You know, you watch the video for yourself, but definitely very consistent ammo. It shot well, it fed well, it was very accurate. Again, the one thing I really like about it, it is the same grain weight as most people's practice ammo. And so for accuracy and consistency sakes, it definitely But they did say optimized for superior performance in short barrels, and they weren't joking. I do believe that this test data on their box, this 1050 feet per second, had to have come from like a 3-inch or 2.8-inch barrel. So from a 3.3-inch barrel, I beat those numbers by quite a bit. So anyway, yeah, definitely made for short barrels. If you carry a short barrel gun and you want a deep penetrating round, this one is definitely one to think about. Again, not a plus P, so not a concern there. Okay. And then the last factory round was the Federal Punch. This is the one I was the most impressed with. So the Federal Punch, 124 grain non-plus P, definitely had the highest ballistics of any ammo. Now, here's where it gets interesting, though. They advertise 1150. 1150. My average came up to 1062. So an average muzzle velocity of 1062. So I got under the advertised muzzle velocity by quite a bit. Muzzle energy came up to be 310. So, you know, not a bad muzzle energy, not a bad muzzle velocity, but definitely under what they put on their box. So Federal's probably running this out of a 5-inch barrel, and I ran it out of a 3.3. So if you shoot a shorter barrel and you carry the Federal Punch, you are not going to get the numbers on the box. However, it fed reliably, it was very accurate, and it expanded quite beautifully. And that's the big thing with a shorter barrel is, do I get that good full expansion? And this Federal Punch definitely delivered there. It has a 154% expansion, and it retained 100% of its weight. This weighs in at exactly 124 grains. Beautifully mushroomed slug, and it penetrated into the 4th water jug. So this is, I look for a 9mm that goes to puts a dent in the back of the 3rd jug or goes into the 4th jug. This one definitely delivered. I think if you're looking for that happy medium, that Goldilocks, where it penetrates deep but also expands well, this one was the best of the lot because it went into the 4th jug, but it expanded past 150%. So you get kind of both of those qualities. Definitely a good round, definitely a lot of energy on the target. Again, it was very accurate. Good round. I was surprised. I really expected at least one of these hollow points to expand poorly in a short barrel, and none of them did. Now, the last one, my hand load, the Hornady Xtp hand load. This is an old cup and core soft bullet. Fired. This is my hand load. I loaded this with long shot powder, and my average muzzle velocity was 1,116 feet per second. So 1116 FPS, 343 foot-pounds for my hand load. This is not a plus P round. It had a 98% weight retention, so it did shed a little bit of weight. This is a 124 grain bullet starting out, weighed in about 121 on the scale after we recovered it. Expansion was 151%. So I loaded these XTPs because I couldn't find hollow points for sale, and we do like to practice with our hollow points. And so I was concerned, and we went out and did a bunch of function testing, but I did not do a water jug test. And I just felt like these would expand, and they were kind of on the shelf for what-if scenarios. So still have them loaded for that what-if scenario, but now I know that these definitely will expand out of the short barrel, and expanded quite well. And these went into the 3rd jug, so they didn't go quite as deep as the Federal Punch. It is a softer lead. It definitely opens up faster. We got a little bit more splashback out of this one. So again, if you're looking for that more immediate effect, this, of course, this is not commercially available. It's just something I threw in with these other ones. So anyway, that's kind of our wrap up, guys. And I'll have all this data in the comments for you to see. But you know, you make your decision what you want to carry. Do you want something that opens up very rapidly and does a lot of damage very quickly? Or do you want something that penetrates deep? And the question there is really to visualize what are your options? What are your options when you're carrying? You know, why do you carry? Where do you carry? What do you envision? You know, like I had one person I know, he said, listen, I worry really about barrier penetration. I might have to shoot through a windshield or a door. You want something that's going to penetrate deeper, okay? Flip side of that is, you know, I'm in my home and I worry about over penetration and hitting my kids. You want something that's going to open up very quickly and not penetrate as deeply. More importantly, you want to make sure it functions in your gun. So, I mean, if you buy any of these, if there's anything that you want to run as an everyday carry ammo, make sure your gun will feed it. My Glock 26 fed all 4 of these with no issues. You know, and like I said, they all expanded, because my one concern with a short barrel gun is, will it expand? All of these expanded well. There was no, you know, poor expander in the group. Everything really mushroomed the way it should have. And the Hornady Critical Duty may have been at a disadvantage, because this is truly a duty ammo. This is made for police officers, FBI. This was designed by Hornady to pass the FBI ballistics test, where they shoot through different barriers and things like that. And, you know, I look at this hollow point, it didn't expand a lot. And my question is, because I shot it from a short barrel, did I put this ammo at a disadvantage? You know, I don't know. I mean, it is made for a duty gun. So I do, and I may go back and shoot this through a 4.5, 5-inch barrel, more of that carry, you know, police officers size gun, that duty size firearm, and see if I get better expansion. And that may be, you know, maybe I put this one at a disadvantage and it would expand more and penetrate a little less from a duty size gun. These other 3 really were made for short barrels, and they did quite well in them. I mean, even the SIG even says optimized for short barrels. So I hope that helps you guys. I hope it answers some questions. If you're looking at any of these ammos, I hope it gives you some data to go on. Please like and subscribe. We love the support. If you have video ideas, reach out to me. You know, we love testing stuff, so anything you want me to test, we'll be glad to do it. And I appreciate all the support. Thanks, guys.